everyone, and welcome to Rosebank Farm and Garden. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about the odd rule of landscaping. And I've said in many of my videos that an odd number is pleasing to the eye, and I started to think about that, like, why is that so? Why is that a thing? So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that it has to do with how our brain functions. With odd numbers, the brain is looking for a pair, and so that creates movement throughout your landscape. As your brain, it can't settle. It has to keep moving and looking for that pair. In nature, plants tend to grow together in groups, and by applying that design to landscaping, you plant a group of 3 or 5 plants close together, which creates a rhythmic dynamic movement. By repeating the same groups of plants further down the design, in odd numbers again, will help create that movement as your eye travels from one bed to the other. One thing to be aware of is that you don't want to use large groups of plants. Sometimes you can get away with 7, but when you hit 7 to 9 groups of plants, the brain doesn't process that into pairs. It just starts to see it as they merge or morph into one big clump, and it creates density. I'm going to give you examples of all of these in my garden. Hey, the number 1 is the ultimate prime number, and you can get away with using one plant. It is your specimen plant or the big focal point that you want in your yard. So you need to make sure that that plant has the dimensions and the impact to stand alone. If you're striving for a formal design, then even numbers are the way to go. With even numbers, your brain is always searching for that pair, and so in a formal garden, your mind's eye finds rest. The brain is instinctively trying to impose order and to process things into pairs, which is why in a formal garden, it lets your mind settle and find a little bit of structure. You're striving for a more informal look, a more of a cottage garden look, and you want to create that movement and flow. You want to use plants in groups of 1 for a focal point, 3, 5, or 7, but be careful with using 7 or more plants of the same kind together. Okay, so now that we know how the brain works a little bit and why odd numbers are better for landscaping, let's go take a look at some examples in my garden. My first example is the number 1, prime example of a future focal point in my garden. So we're focusing in on this plant. Now, I ordered it through the mail from Proven Winners. This is a dark chocolate decadence baptisia. And when it matures to its full size, it will be a very strong focal point. So I'm going to throw a picture up of what it'll look like when it's mature. You have to use your imagination and vision to picture this dark chocolate baptisia adding weight and density to this spot. Okay, so prime number 1. Okay, number 3, groups of 3. Let me take a step back. All right, so here I have 3 blue fescue grasses and 3 Desdemona David Austin roses. So a grouping of 3 and then 3 more. Now the number 5. These are silver dragon lilygrass, and notice with the grouping of 5, let me back up a little bit. Your vision just wants to keep going, create that movement. Where's the next plant? This is my last example of 7, and these are autumn joy sedum, and they're creating that density. You see the 3 in the front, but the 4 in the back, you're not really seeing it all. It's just coming together one big blob. Your brain's not processing that there are pairs there. So it's just one great big unit. These are denim and lace Russian sage from Proven Winners, and I have a group of 3, but I think there's too much space And so I'm going to add 2 more to have a group of 5. And let's see how that changes the dynamic and the flow in this area. The 2 plants that I'm going to add are a different brand. They're not proven winners. But this is called Blue Jean Baby Russian Sage. This Blue Jean Baby will get 28 to 34 inches tall and 36 inches wide. So I'm going to need to give it some space. Got this second one planted, and there's my grouping of 5. And see how your brain wants to continue on down, trying to find the next one to put everything together in pairs. I really like how this turned out. I think the 5, adding the 2 plants, adds that extra punch to make your eye continue the movement down into the flower bed, where I have a blank spot, but we'll fill that in eventually. But I like it. I like the 5 instead of the 3. Now I am going to keep my eye on this denim and lace from Proven Winners. We've had like 2 weeks of very hot, dry weather, and a lot of my plants are starting to show some signs of suffering from the heat and maybe lack of iron. I notice I have some yellowing going on. But anyways, I have 5 plants, and I think it looks pretty good. Last thing I want to show you is this grouping of Brunnera. I have 5, but if you notice, I have like, your eye is drawn and makes pairs, even though they're not symmetrical, around the Godzilla fern. And then the 5th one's kind of over there by itself because I wanted to leave a path into the lilac, because that's where I played when I was a kid. My children played there, and my grandchildren go to play there. It's almost as if the Brunnera over here becomes its own focal point because it is separated from the other mass planting. So what I'm going to do is I picked up some more clearance plants. These are yellow primrose, and I know they look in sorry shape now, but I'm going to plant those around the Brunnera over here in a drift of 3, and just kind of offset this Brunnera by itself. And then maybe next year I'll pick up another Brunnera to have my grouping of 5 over here. These are Primella Parola Yellow, a yellow primrose. Hopefully that's a good shot of it. And I know they're not much to look at now, but that's why I like clearance plants. I will have a beautiful plant next year, and I'm patient. I can wait. For $1.50, yeah. All right, so we're just going to do a drift right around rocks. Ran into a lot of rocks planting the Russian sage over there. The ground is so hard. Maybe I shouldn't have put my shovel away. So I have the primrose planted. I don't know if I mentioned they're zones 4 through 8, and they grow 6 to 12 inches tall. So they should be a nice complement to the Brunnera that blooms with a blue bloom early spring. So let's move back and check out the whole bed now. So we have the 4 Brunnera around the fern, and there's room, I think, for one more right there, maybe in the front. And then adding the primrose around the Brunnera on the other side of the opening, I think adds a little bit of weight and accents that one over there. So I like it. I'm trying to follow the odd rule of landscaping. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed learning more about the odd rule of landscaping and why that is a thing. Because of the way our brain functions to put things in order and in pairs. And as a teacher, I find that really fascinating. And then to apply that to gardening, my other passion, I just thought was really cool. So I was going to leave you with two poems that I teach my students about numbers. If it's odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, odd numbers are super fine. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, even numbers are really great. I hope you found this video interesting and maybe learned something about why we talk about that odd rule of landscaping with using 1, 3, 5, or 7 plants of the same kind in your landscape to create movement. I really enjoyed researching and making this video, so thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!